Michael Ordway here with the Marriage and Family Counseling Center. I'd like to share a little bit today about the importance of what we call the speaker-listener skill. Now, this is primarily used with couples. We also use it with family members or any friendship relations that are having difficulty in understanding each other. But for the sake of this document, we'll do the idea of couples. In this idea of speaker-listener, there is a slowing down of a dispute or a conversation. Most people either get into a really heated conversation because they want to have it right now, or they'll just stop communicating because they don't want to have the fight and it's not worth it, so they won't resolve anything. There'll just be a lot of silence and a lot of walls. That's commonly referred to as far as you feeling this distance between you and your partner. So this speaker-listener skill is a tool that you won't use on every conversation. The idea behind it is to use it whenever one or the other person feels like they're not being understood or they're not understanding the other person. So the idea is there'll be a speaker and there'll be a listener. The speaker will share their perspective in this exercise, and each therapist that you go to will have their own version of how to help the couple, in this example, work through this, because every couple is different, every therapist is different, so this will be varied in its approach. But in general, the speaker will share their perspective. Now, it's not important how factually accurate that perspective is. This exercise is not about seeing who has the best memory about what happened during the event. This exercise is about understanding how the event was perceived by both parties. That's the purpose here, being understood by another person. So the speaker will first share their perspective. We want to try and keep these perspectives short enough to have highlighted points that the other person can recap. So if one or other person tends to go on for long periods of time, your therapist may help you shorten those time frames so that the partner can get caught up and show that they are tracking with you, they are understanding what's being said. But so you'll have the speaker who'll go first for a short time. Then you'll have the listener whose job only is to repeat what they heard, how they heard it, what they understood. Not to say what they thought was correct or incorrect about the other thing, not to defend any accusations they feel were thrown against them. The only job of this step 2 speaker listener is just to, what did you hear the other person say? Then the speaker has an opportunity to correct or change or alter or clarify things that they just heard, the listener repeat what they heard. If that's not what they intended to be understood by the listener, the speaker gets to help correct those misunderstandings, and that process repeats until they both agree that's what was said. And that's end of scenario for one. Then you switch roles, and you're going to have who was the listener be the speaker now, and then they get to comment, get to share their perspective, get to respond if there's any questions in that thing they're going on, and then they share that perspective, and then it's now the listener's turn, who was the first speaker, will then say what they heard. And this process will go back and forth until you relearn each other's language, because a lot of assumptions are built up in people, and if those assumptions aren't checked up on and they just build up over time, you'll add things, or you'll negate things that are being said, and you'll miss the intent of the message. And that's where a lot of misunderstandings and fights come from, is that misunderstanding. And as counselors, we want to help you relearn the language of your spouse. And in this case, this can also apply to friends or family or any two individuals that are not understanding each other. And so that skill, typically you will use both in the counseling session and in between sessions as needed, as directed by your therapist. So be ready for that exercise. It is a good one. It is a foundation for relearning how to communicate when you think you're not being heard, or when you're not understanding someone else. I hope it goes well for you. Please be patient with your counselor, be patient with your significant other, and try to have fun, because it's about understanding somebody else.